Now, I'm sure a lot of people want to know, you know, why is John Cena going to be facing Roman Reigns? Well, one, when it comes to SummerSlam and you're at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada, which can pack 70,000 plus fans, it's a safe bet that you want a match that's going to do exactly that. Along with, whether you like it or not, something like Goldberg and Lashley. Because what I see going on here is that even though WWE knows that nobody wants to see Lashley and Goldberg, the same as some may not want to see Reigns and Cena, they know that if they're going to evolve, they have to have the current crop of stars get the torch passed to them by the past crop of stars, by those that are legends in the WWE, if not the business as we speak. That is why we're getting these matches. That is why Goldberg's facing Lashley. That is why Cena is facing Reigns. And I know a lot of people are afraid. A lot of people are afraid that Lashley's going to lose to Goldberg, or Lashley's going to get beaten so hard, even in victory, it's going to allow for Big E to cash in and become WWE champion. Or the same could be said for Reigns and Cena. That Reigns is going to be beaten up so bad, even in victory, it's going to allow Big E, I should say, to cash in and become Universal Champion. And those all are true possibilities. Those are definitely true possibilities. But the thing is, these are what are known as money matches. These are known as box office gate-like matches, which is why you are getting those at SummerSlam. But when it comes to Roman Reigns, though, even though he's one of the biggest stars they have right now, and one of their top heels, if not the top heel in the business, in the company, or as some people like to play along with to make it fun for them, the top babyface, the next major opponent when it comes to Roman Reigns' agenda of challengers that he has to check off, if you will, after Cena, his next major one is not his cousin, although that would make sense for Dallas. Big draw, big crowd, the storyline is there, and everything. But unfortunately, it's not him, as far as we know. It's Brock Lesnar. And the reason it's Brock Lesnar is due to the fact that whether we like it or not, there's the Paul Heyman issue right there, the Paul Heyman dynamic. Where does his loyalty lie? But also there's that story, as they would like to try to present it as, to where both Brock and Roman have one win apiece over each other. And that at WrestleMania, if that's the destination they're heading for when it comes to this third match, that this rubber match will determine who is indeed the beast, who is indeed the dominant figure in WWE. That's why Brock is on the table according to several reports and rumors. Even though The Rock makes more sense when it comes to drawing power, Brock is the one that WWE looks at from their own point of view of storytelling. Like, now that we have this Roman Reigns, how would he fare against Brock Lesnar? And like I said, you have the Paul Heyman dynamic. So that is why Roman right now is slotted to possibly face Brock at WrestleMania next year instead of Dwayne. Because even though they could get Dwayne, and that would make sense, to make that happen, you got to realize his opportunity to step back in the ring is tied up due to the fact that he has all these contractual contracts, with studios that basically prevent him from getting in the ring because they don't want him to suffer an injury like he did at WrestleMania, 29? They don't want him to go through that again. So that's why even if they allow him to get back in the ring and compete, it's got to be very limited. Or basically he can't take any bumps. That's it. So, this is why I think right now WWE is hoping they can get Brock against Roman around WrestleMania next year, because they know it's going to be a hassle, if you will, to get The Rock, to get him to compete. Even though I know a lot of fans, and even those here that I watch on YouTube that talk about wrestling, I know they pretty much feel that Roman and Rock is the moneymaker for WrestleMania. That's the gate draw. That's the match that needs to happen. And I agree completely. I really do. But this is WWE we're talking about. And as far as WWE is concerned, they look more at the fact that, yeah, we know Rock and Roman's the big drawing match, when it comes to its star power and its importance and storyline. We know that. But, they're probably looking at the fact that, yeah, they would like to have that match. But they also realize, like I said, as much as we don't want to acknowledge it, that there's a lot of legal mumble jumble to try to get Dwayne back in, to make that match happen. And there's also the conflict and interest of, okay, if we bring The Rock back to face Roman, do we just bring him back to job to Roman? Is that why we're bringing him back? Or do we bring him back to win? That's where it's kind of confusing for them. That's where it's kind of like, do we do this or we do that? And I think they don't want to go through that. And to them, the safest bet would be to bring Brock in, because Brock would be more willing, based on his history, and I guess the respect outside of the ring for that he has for Roman, that Brock would be more willing to put Roman over, because Roman's going to be there more than Brock, and thus by putting him over, you're passing the torch of, now Roman's the conqueror, now he's the beast, he's the dominant force in WWE, and he pretty much earned that right by beating the guy that once held that title himself. So from a WWE business standpoint, it makes sense to, and storyline standpoint, it makes sense to go that route. And it's the safer option. It's the safer option to go with. Because, because basically like I said, from a legal standpoint, how do they know, the Hollywood studios, the movies that, Dwayne is working on will allow him to get back in the ring? And also from a business standpoint, what sense does it make for just to bring The Rock in to put over Roman when it makes better sense to put the belt on him? You know what I'm saying? The thing is, right now, as fans, we know that WWE needs to make the matches that we know or we believe and feel can draw the most money and get the most attention for them. We know that. We know that, Lashley versus Lesnar is a big money match. It's a match everybody's been wanting. Even Lashley himself has said he's been wanting that since he came back. That's the reason he came back. And we know that's a big drawing match for SummerSlam instead of just, Lashley and Goldberg. And we know that when it comes to something like Mania, Rock versus Reigns is the better matchup than Reigns versus Brock. So, even though we know and believe that those are the more sensible matches to go with, especially from a gate drawing, financial point of view, like I said, this is WWE. And, even though potentially there are some behind the scenes, maybe even Vince himself, that want these matches to happen, it's not going to be possible. It's not going to be possible, because one, like I told Alex in a super chat last night, I think Brock probably heard, or probably was, given the opportunity to face Lashley at SummerSlam, because, it's, Las Vegas is known as MMA town, fight town, and that makes a lot of sense for that match to happen there. But Brock probably was proposed with the idea, and he was probably cool with it until they said, oh yeah, by the way, Lashley's going to go over you. And then that's when he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I think that's what happened. He probably said, F that. It's like, I'm cool with the idea to face Lashley, that's not a problem, but I'm not going to put this guy over because he's not on my level. Because you got to look at it from an MMA, because I think Brock looks at it from, let's say, an experience level and, a background level of mixed martial arts. Brock became a force and the heavyweight champion in the UFC. Lashley never touched the UFC. All he did was Bellator and I think a little bit of Pride FC, and that's it. And yeah, he remained undefeated, but he never won a title. So if you're Brock and you're proposed with this idea, and even though you may think, yeah, it's a great idea, but then you hear what the outcome is going to be, would you want to potentially, go through with it? From an experience standpoint, from a pride standpoint? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't want to go through with it unless you're the one going over. And I think that's why they brought in Goldberg, because Brock said, no, I'm not going to put this guy over, in front of 70,000 fans and make my run in the UFC as a mixed martial artist look pale in comparison to Bobby's undefeated run in basically the minor leagues of MMA, that being Bellator and Pride. So, I honestly, even though that's the match we feel that should happen, it's like I told Alex in the Super Chat, I believe this, in my opinion, is the reason why it's not happening and why they call Goldberg. And this is why I think when they presented the idea of Brock going up against Roman at WrestleMania next year potentially and putting him over, he was more open to that because he has respect for Roman and maybe the Samoan family, that he'd be willing to do that. And also because of the connection with Heyman, and Heyman probably being close to Brock is saying, look, this is going to make Roman a bigger star, and it's going to make you a lot of money in the process, even if you lose, because you're not going to be here that much. Roman is. So honestly, I think that's what went down. That's what went down, and I know it's disappointing for a lot of fans to hear this, to hear these rumors, these speculations, these confirmations, if you will. I know it's hard, but we can't really do anything. I mean, I did say one time in a video about a week or two ago, I said, look, you want WWE to hear you? Do you want WWE to give you what you want? You may have to basically, revisit 2014 and do what you did for Daniel Bryan, and that's hijack the freaking shows. Anytime, Goldberg comes out to confront Lashley leading up to SummerSlam, you let it be known, we want Lesnar. So that way WWE gets the idea of, oh, they want Lesnar against Lashley. Maybe that wakes them up enough to where Survivor Series, we might get the match there. I'm just saying. But basically, that's the only way I see WWE giving you what you want, is you pull a Daniel Bryan from 2014 and you basically hijack, the shows, and then you basically pass it on to all your colleagues and friends across the board, and you have them do the same thing at basketball games, at football games, wherever. You have them chant, we want Lesnar, or we want Rock, and all that. And hopefully that sends a message to WWE of, okay, maybe we need to do that. Maybe we need to go that route. It makes sense to me. It makes a lot more sense to me that that's the only way, potentially WWE will give you what you want. But right now, what WWE is doing is they're going off adrenaline. They're going off the adrenaline of the crowds that are happy to be out and about again, to be out of confinement, if you will. Although there's some people that fear that we may end up back in confinement just temporarily because people don't want to get vaccinated. But I don't think that's going to happen. It'd be too much of a struggle, too much of a pain. So, I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, WWE, in my opinion, is going off adrenaline. And that adrenaline is, fans just want to be out and about. They know fans will cheer and boo whoever and whatever they see. And, just go from there. And I think, that's WWE's plan for right now until, as a lot of people put it, the honeymoon period, ends and things get back to a normal pace. That's the only way WWE is going to realize, oh, maybe maybe fans don't want these things. Maybe they don't want this. Maybe they don't want that. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And, it's the same with, Nikki Ash, A.S. S.H, almost a superhero, Nikki Cross. With her winning Money in the Bank last night and her cashing in, not last night but on Sunday night, and then cashing in last night. A lot of people are like, wait a minute, out of nowhere you're finally giving Nikki Cross a push, and all because she came up with this superhero idea. Yeah, I think that's the reason. And I don't think, honestly, it's an idea that they present, and I don't think it's just an idea she presented to Vince, and along with the numerous other ideas she had, and they selected that one for her to go with, and basically gave it approval. I don't think it was that. I think, honestly, there are some men and women in WWE right now that came from NXT, come from the independents, that try to be as they were in NXT, try to be as they were in the independents, but then over time realize that if they're going to get anywhere in WWE, they have to adapt. As much as we don't want to see it, they have to adapt to the WWE way of performing and competing, and having personality or personas, and that's what Nikki did. She has joined essentially a long list of men and women that tried to be themselves, coming out of the independents, and over the past near decade out of NXT, and she's decided to finally adapt because she realizes if she don't adapt, she's not going to get anywhere, and that's why she, I think, honestly came up with the whole let me have this, came up with the whole idea of her creating this persona for her of almost a superhero. Now, I think the saving grace in the eyes of a lot of fans, honestly, I think the saving grace for her would be that if she comes out next Monday on Raw and basically starts out as she is now, but then gets serious, removes the mask, and says this was all just a joke, this was all just a ploy to finally get my hands on this, and then she suddenly tears off the outfit, and we see that she's going back to Twisted Sister Mickey, or Twisted Sister Nikki, I should say, not Mickey, but Twisted Sister Nikki, and that now she has the Raw Women's title, and that every defense will be a hardcore style like match, because that's who she is, or that's what she's about. That's the only saving grace I think a lot of fans would agree is possible, is to salvage this, and that's have her come out, act as she is right now, but then get serious, take the mask off, take the outfit off, and reveal that it was all a ploy, and that now she's back to Twisted Sister Nikki Cross, and that every title defense will be no disqualification, hardcore style. I don't think it will happen, but to me it would make it more interesting, because people I can see someone like Alex going like, okay, I can buy that, I can get behind that, I like that, it's good storytelling right there. So to me, honestly, I think that would be the only thing that potentially could save it, in my opinion. But like I said, or salvage it, in my opinion, in the eyes of a lot of fans. But honestly, I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to go off the reactions of her winning the briefcase, winning the Raw Women's Championship, and then building it from there. I think that's what they're going to do. And if they have to pipe in crowd noise, unfortunately, to make that happen, they will. Hopefully they don't. They let it organically, happen on its own. But yeah, again, from a business standpoint, though, when it comes to like SummerSlam and the matches we're getting in WrestleMania next year, yeah, WWE, it's obviously maybe it's not what they wanted, because they know it's it's something that the fans would have wanted. Like maybe some people behind the scenes knew fans wanted these kind of matches, and unfortunately they can't get them because of certain reasons, and that's why we're getting the matches we are at SummerSlam, and potentially going to get the match we're going to get at WrestleMania. It's just unfortunate that WWE doesn't look at it as the way it should be looked at, and we'll have to we'll have to see what happens from there. But yeah, in closing, basically, you know, the reason we're getting Goldberg against Bobby is because I think, honestly, they presented the idea to Brock. Brock was cool with it until he found out the outcome. Said, F that. I'm not doing that because he's beneath me. I have more experience than him. I'm a former UFC champion. What championship did he win in mixed martial arts besides being undefeated? You know, and even probably pointed out that, hey, I was in, you know, UFC and he wasn't. You know, so from a pride standpoint, you know, if you were in Brock's shoes, from a pride standpoint, what would you rather have? You putting over a guy that competed in an MMA promotion or promotions that was, you know, kind of like second tier or third tier to UFC, or would you want to be the one that goes over that guy? Just saying. And as far as, you know, WrestleMania is concerned, you know, that's basically because of the fact that, like I said, it's all contractual, you know, stuff that prevents, you know, WWE from fully wanting to commit to getting Rock to come in and compete and potentially do the job to Roman. You know, not just because, you know, there are studios that he's connected with that don't want him to get hurt because they want to get him into these starring roles for these mega hit movies that he draws a lot of money for at the box office. You know, it's not just that. But on the WWE side of things, it's like, yeah, sensibly, it makes, you know, sensibly and business-wise, it makes a lot of, you know, it makes sense for Rock to put Roman over. But then you look at the fact that, well, if you're going to bring Rock in, and studios are going to allow you to do this, what would they want in return? And obviously what they would want in return is Rock winning the championship. I'm just saying. So, yeah, I think a lot of that stuff behind the scenes, as far as, you know, his studio movie contractual stuff goes, is basically the reason why we're not going to really get Rock and Roman at Mania just yet. I think, honestly, if we do get it, it'll be saved for WrestleMania 33, which will be in Southern California at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood. I think that, you know, logically it makes sense to go there from a Hollywood standpoint, but, you know, I just don't think we're going to get it at WrestleMania 32 because of everything I just mentioned, which is why they're probably going to, you know, put a safe bet on getting Brock, because Brock seemingly is the kind of guy that'd be, you know, willing to put Roman over because of the Paul Heyman connection and the respect Paul and I think Brock has for the Samoan dynasty, for the Samoan family, and for Roman himself. But yeah, those are just my thoughts on why, you know, WWE is making the decisions they are for SummerSlam and WrestleMania as well when it comes to certain matches. But let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you on this. Like the video. You know, let me know what your thoughts are in the live chat during the premiere. How do you feel about all this? And I will talk to you all later.